If you want to increase your hit potential with your tactical carbine or your rifle, whatever that rifle may be, AR-15, AK, M1A, Mini 14, SKS, FN of some sort, seriously, you ought to look into perhaps fitting on an optical sight. Lots of different optical sights to choose from. If your POU for your tactical carbine is maybe 0 to 200 meters, which I kind of consider a realistic engagement range for a WRL type rifle, or for you law enforcement types, a patrol carbine, then you might want to look into a non-magnified sight, kind of along the lines of this Aimpoint. This is a Comp ML3. I've talked to it before. You may have seen me in the falling snow giving a brief review and summary of my preferences between the Aimpoint and the EOTECH, and both are excellent sights. And in a lot of ways, this is kind of like the EOTECH versus AK argument. A lot of people who are passionate on both sides of the aisle. Please be respectful. Same rules apply. I mean, don't get negative in your comments. I'll just shut the comments down. And more importantly, I won't be motivated to make more videos. And my other time commitments will take precedence. So please, if you're an EOTECH fan, right on. You chose well. Same for Aimpoint. I'm going to give you my preferences, of course. It's more interesting that way, again. And let's go. First off, POU. Again, if you're going with a quick firing tactical carbine, something that you need to engage with quickly, I pretty much recommend going non-magnified. That pretty much rules out ACOGs. At least the 4-power ACOG, which I have some associates running, and I've shot competitively against them, and they don't like it for CQB. It's too much magnification. Now that 4-power ACOG, when you go out to 100 yards, then it really comes into its own, and maybe you're going to lose some precision with a non-magnified sight like the EOTECH and Aimpoint. You're going to have to decide. For me, I've decided that the Aimpoint non-magnified is pretty much going to satisfy the POU for certain guns, as you can see here. Now this one's riding in an LT150 LaRue mount. This is a quick release lever lock mount. Absolutely love it. I like all things LaRue. Super high quality, quick to release, returns to 0. I need 2 hands for this. And that's an important point too, guys, returning to 0. That means I can switch back and forth if I want to between my irons and the optical sight if I want. However, with LT150 mount, I co-witness those sights. That basically means this backup iron sight jibes perfectly through the lens of the optic, aligning with the front sight. And that means that even if the optic is dead, I can do it. Actually, I misspoke because this is folded under this particular setup here, so I would have to remove the mount. But it's a quick enough thing to do. Remove it and then pop your rear BUIS up. So that's a good mount. That kind of speaks to perhaps a disadvantage of the Aimpoint. And let's get going. You're going to have to get a mount for it unless you go with the newer Comp M4. The new Comp M4 is the new M68 CCO that the Army is using. Let me show you a picture of that real quick, and I'm going to kind of discuss its philosophy versus the one I have. There you go. There's a Comp M4. I'm in the SWFA website, and guess what? That's an expensive site. Guess what? All these are, though. They're all expensive. And I'll talk to that in a minute, the weight. But that has a combined, ready-to-go mount. You're not going to have to spend money for an extra mount with the new M68 or Comp M4. Sorry, I'm clipping this back in. I'll get squared away here momentarily. Here we go. This one actually needed a mount. LT150 is what I'm running, as noted there on the bottom. They're not inexpensive. Everything LaRue pretty much costs a fair amount of money. Sorry, LaRue. That's just the way it is. It's expensive. But it mounts very solidly, puts it at the exact eye level you would want it, at least on a flat top AR-15. If you're going on a different gun, go look at their webpage. They have different mounts. And it's not just LaRue. You can go to GG&G, and Arms also has some mounts. And there's some passionate people who feel strongly against one brand or another. However, I think most of them are pretty high quality, and you'll be able to slam it on top of your gun and be happy with it. Me, I'm a LaRue fan. And that's just the way I roll when it comes to mounts. I'm willing to pay a little extra money to get a lot more quality, and more importantly, lightweight. And this is indeed a very lightweight mount. By the way, there's an extra battery compartment down there. And I like how LaRue always mills out as much metal as they can without sacrificing strength. Big plus. Speaking of pluses, what are the things that I like about the Aimpoint? Well, first off, I like that I can close it up. I mentioned that in the snow when I did the first review video on it. You can batten down the hatches on an Aimpoint, and to me that's a huge plus. With an EOTECH, not so much, at least the current versions. You have the optics exposed to rain, snow, sleet, dust, mud, water, and that might cause a problem. Now, there's different ways to handle that. They do make a neoprene cover that you can cover the sight with. However, things that are not attached to the gun tend to be lost readily, in my experience. You can pretty much say bye-bye to that cover under combat conditions. Here's another alternative that's in the Brigade Quartermaster catalog. Page, I don't know, where am I? 68 or so. Those are windows that you can slam on there. Fits a 511, 512, 551, 552. They're spring operated front and rear covers that will prevent dust and debris getting on your lens. It doesn't look like they're waterproof though. And they also weigh about 3 ounces, so that's going to add to your loadout weight if you opt for an EOTECH. By the way, I'm not going to get really bogged down in all the different varieties of EOTECH. I'm going to talk generally about the EOTECH, generally about the Aimpoint, and then I'll talk about overall features each has as I go along. At least I try to. And I'm sorry, guys, I can't cover all the details. I'll try to get most of it right. But I don't like how I can't batten down the hatches on an EOTECH. It doesn't seem to be a problem for the troops out there, though. It gets glowing reports from the field. Guys absolutely love it. But that's my preference. Another thing I like about the Aimpoint is it has a mechanical switch. And what I mean by that is it's tactile. You know, you can feel it rotate and go into the detents, and actually, if it's quiet, you can hear it. It has to be very quiet because it doesn't make a lot of noise, nor would I want it to. But you can feel it. It's a clicky switch. I like that. The EOTECH is press and hold. At least the current versions are. So to turn the sight on, I'm going to press one of the buttons, and then, of course, I'll up the brightness level to the desired level. Not a bad deal, and actually I'm lying a little bit because they are tactile. You can hear that. So not bad. Between the two, I kind of like the rotating dial mechanical switch. That's just my preference. How about the dot sizes and the sight presentation between the Aimpoint and the EOTECH? Well, honestly, that is a matter of personal preference. And I'm going to start with the EOTECH on this one. I love the EOTECH sight. I like the 65 MOA circle with a 1 MO8 dot, so it's going to give us very fast presentation and also precision at the same time. I'm trying to keep this aligned so you can see it. There we go. I really wish I had a black background. You can see it better. That's a fast presentation. Now be advised, that is not a razor sharp holographic display. It's made up of, it looks like little tiny pixels in the holographic image. And they call it HWS, holographic weapon sight. Sorry, I keep losing that sight. There we go. And there's little tiny pixels that are projected to produce the image. That is a good aiming point. I love it. How about the Aimpoint? Well, guess what? It's just what it says. It's an aim point. It's a single dot. By the way, my preference for the dot, this is just Nutnfancy, is a 2 MOA. I don't like big old dots out there. And the reason is if you want to compensate for a smaller dot, just crank your brightness level up, guys. That's easy enough to do. And I like the precision of a smaller dot. If I have to engage a target that requires precision, I have that. I don't mind it. And again, both of these sights are shot with both eyes open. This is not a sight that you're going to close, one eye and then, aim, Beverly Hills style or Beverly Hillbilly style. Can't speak. Beverly Hills. I still can't speak. I'll join those two clips. Talking about when you aim with the Aimpoint or the EOTECH, keep both eyes open. It's not necessary to close your eyes. That's the nature of the sights, and going with a zero magnification variety. Very helpful and very fast if you use it properly. One thing I love about the EOTECH versus Aimpoint, though, if you're going to run night vision, this system might be a little bit better. That's because it has a dedicated NV button here. So if we slam on our night vision sight piggybacked on the rear of perhaps EOTECH, then all we would do to access night vision, and again, I'm not the EOTECH expert, but I think you're just pushing the night vision button, and voila, we're in night vision mode. You can't see it, of course, because we're not wearing night vision goggles or looking through a night vision scope. And then we push it again and we go back to daylight mode. The Aimpoint's actually pretty easy to use, but there is one feature I'm not super fond of, and that is to go through your night vision settings, you're just going to go clockwise and cycle through them until you get to your daylight mode. Not a player in this ML3, because anytime you see the L designation, like the Comp ML3, it's a non-night vision mode, or non-night vision sight, which will save you some money, a fair amount of money. If you go NV Aimpoint, you're going to be paying around $80 more, something like that. And for my uses and my wallet, more importantly, I just went with the daylight scope, or daylight Aimpoint, and it works fine for me. I kind of wish the Aimpoint actually had more brightness levels, at least this ML3. It goes plenty bright, but not as quite as many levels as I would like it to have for the level of sight it is. Not a big deal, just a minor quibble there. Also, if you do have a night vision Aimpoint, it's quicker if you get a non-night vision if you're just going to go daylight use. Like I said, and I want to stress that point so you guys understand what I'm saying. In other words, if I need my sight on like really quick, I don't have to go through 5 or 6 clicks getting past my night vision setting before I get to my daylight mode. Follow? And therein lies the advantage of the EOTECH system, a dedicated night vision button. At least on this model of 550, what is it, the 553 or the SU-231 is the military designation. And another advantage of the EOTECH would be that it has the integrated lever lock arms variety right at the base and has a 7mm high base on it. That's cool. However, it's going to add more weight. This one with batteries weighs out, I believe, at 13 ounces. The 553 with batteries, without, it's 12.3 ounces. So not exactly light. And then you're saying, well, what's the ML3 weigh? With batteries and the mount, it's 11 ounces. So it's 2 ounces lighter than the EOTECH. You know how Nutnfancy is. Sorry, guys. I'm always about the lightweight when I can get away with it. 2 ounces is nothing to sneeze at. It all adds up. If you don't watch your ounces on your tactical carbine with all the crap you guys are throwing on it, you're going to end up with a 13.5-pound gun. You're going to be scratching your head and wondering why. Dude, how did my gun get so heavy? Well, it got so heavy because you weren't watching ounces. Same with backpacking. If you don't watch it, next thing you know, you're going to have an 80-pound pack. Oh, wait, I already have an 80-pound pack, and I was watching ounces. That's because I'm bringing a lot of crap along. That's a cool color, by the way. Isn't that nice, that 553? I love that color. This is sadly missing sight as well. Let's talk about battery life, and this is where the Aimpoint, I think, really pulls ahead in the game. Sorry, that's just the way it is. This EOTECH runs CR123 batteries, and that means this variety right here. And they last a good long while. 1,000 hours or 1,100 hours is what EOTECH says. I think realistically you're going to get more like 6, maybe 500 out of them. Talking to my buds. So a little bit less than they publish. The Aimpoint, the current generation, actually that M4 is rated for 80,000 hours. The Comp M4, i.e. the new M68 CCO. This Comp ML3 is an impressive 50,000 hours. So basically, if you're in a situation, a tactical situation, just turn your sight on and leave it on. Big advantage. I love that. And it's still using just a tiny little battery, a CR1 or 3N battery. That's a small battery that's lightweight. Now that Comp M4 I just showed you, that's using a AA battery, which a lot of users overseas, i.e. military types, like, because that is a commonly available battery, and they're going to get a lot of hours out of it. Again, 80,000 hours. Now, I told you how you can button down that Aimpoint. Big plus. I like that. I keep it clean. And these are waterproof snap caps on the ML3 at least. There are different versions. Again, There's that older M68. This is a Comp M2, the original Army's sight, and also button down variety, waterproof. And this is running a Comp M68 arms throw lever mount. Decent. Going to be extra cost, extra weight though. That's an older one. That's my buddy's, and he has had really good experience with it. He loves it. Same basic operation, just a mechanical knob there. But when you button down those hatches, you can take the Aimpoint to depth pretty much. I mean, this thing is really waterproof. The new ones, like the Comp M4, are water rated down to 135 feet. Yeah, that's pretty good. This one's rated to, let me see, the ML3, I think it's 80 feet. Waterproof, actually to 135 feet as well. This one too. There are certain versions that maybe aren't water rated as much, like the 9000 SC. That's kind of a longer tubed Aimpoint. It has a 4 MOA dot with 50,000 hours of battery life, and that one's rated down just to 15 feet. But the shorter ones, the military variety, I think the Comp M2, Comp M3, M4, they're going to be waterproof at least to an 80 foot depth. Very nice. How about the EOTECH? Now again, a lot of us are not going to be swimming with our sights that deep. But remember, this is static water pressure we're talking about, not dynamic. So dynamic water pressure means we're swishing it around. It's probably going to be a lot less. But the 553 is waterproof to 66 feet. Most EOTECHs, though, are probably rated for around 33 feet according to EOTECH's website. So just a consideration there. I'm going to unclip from the tripod, by the way, and show you some really cool variations of EOTECHs that I think are going to kind of change the mix a little bit. Give me just 1 second. The first off is the XPS 2-1 or 2-0. That's it right there. That one has a transverse mounted CR123 battery, and they're touting 600 hours battery life with one battery. And look how tiny that thing is. It's going to be lightweight too, only 8.8 ounces, lighter than a regular EOTECH. I dig that. That's a cool sight. I think it's kind of new, still coming out, and guess what? Like all cool things, it's going to be expensive. Here's another thing to watch out. Certain models of EOTECHs have side-mounted controls. I like that better than the rear-mounted control, especially if you're going to be running NV behind your sight. It tends to get in the way, those back-mounted buttons, if you're running night vision. And that's just been my experience in shooting, different guns that were set up that way. This is what I'm talking about. Here's your rear mounted. I'd much rather have them mounted right on the side there. It would be much cooler in my opinion. That XPS sight I just showed you comes in different reticles too, which is different for EOTECH. The 2-2, what was it? The 3-2 I showed you is a standard 65 MOA reticle with a 1 MOA dot. Has night vision capability. And then they have one that's basically like an Aimpoint. It's the XPS 3-1, and it has just a 1 MOA dot and night vision capability as well. The 2-1, hope I'm not boring you, 1 MOA dot. So that's different for EOTECH. Normally it's that 65 MOA circle with a 1 MOA dot, which is actually a very nice aiming system. I love it. How's the cost between these? Well, it's splitting hairs really. They're both expensive. You can make a case that the Aimpoint, at least this ML3, was more expensive because I had to buy a mount for it. And that's a true statement, because the ML3 does not come with a mount, and that LaRue mount is expensive. I won't say exactly how much, but it ain't cheap. The new Comp M4, you saw, what was that, $700 and something, $68? You can find probably the new Comp M4 for around $700 bucks, but still, that is a lot of money. They're just not cheap, and it's a hard thing to justify for a lot of people. I just don't know if I want to spend that much on an optical sight. And let me talk to that. Why would you want to do that? Well, it gets to the part of when you absolutely, positively have to have a sight that works, you're going to have to spend some money on it. And here I am speaking from experience. You can go ahead and buy different sights, and just because this one's handy, I'll pick on it. Here is a Burris Speed Dot 135, and I think it's an excellent high-value red dot sight. 30 MOA variety. And no, I'm not going to take it out of the box, but you've probably seen on top of that, I think there was a Kel-Tec I shot that had one of these. Good sight. I will tell you though, it is not to the level of either of these sights. It is not mil-spec quality. It's not waterproof to the level. The electronics are not as solid state as these are. These electronics generally will not fail you. If they have, I haven't heard about it. That level of reliability and life-sustaining reliability is going to cost you some money, dudes. That's just the way it is. And that's why I was finally, after saving up, it took me years to afford this, guys. This isn't just something I went out and, oh yeah, I think I want to buy me an Aimpoint. No, it hurt. When I spent that much money on one sight plus the mount, it stings. It is a lot. But with it, I get a lot of capability. Excuse me. And it's going to be a sight that will last the rest of my life. As, in my opinion, all sights should be. As you can see, sadly missing is doing the same thing. He bought his old Comp M2 many years ago, and here he is, still trucking along with it. It just lasts and lasts and lasts. So the high price you'll have to pay for it probably will be forgotten as years go on. Always look for the good deals, though. Always look for the good deals. And there's different ways to do that. You might have a FFL buddy that might be able to order you your sight at dealer cost in some ways. If you can get it for a military price from different sources, I highly recommend that too. So let's summarize. I think I hit most of the points. Again, I didn't go over all the different varieties of the EOTECHs, all the different varieties of the Aimpoint. This is kind of a broad stroke review to give you something to think about. Advantages to the EOTECH would be the awesome sight picture, that 65 MOA sighting circles, very fast, has integrated throw lever mounts. Some guys will like, the button system better than an Aimpoint. And especially if you get a left rear-mounted button system, they'll love that. One thing I forgot to say about the EOTECH is it has a very wide field of view, more so than the Aimpoint. And a lot of guys like that. It's very TV screen like. It's very armored. There's no way you're going to ding it, bang it. This is anodized 7000 series aluminum that armors the EOTECH sight. It's extremely tough. The front portion is made of glass. The rear portion is made of that acrylic or super tough plastic, whatever it is. It's just built like a tank. Well-made sight. The disadvantages would be the battery life on several models is diminished. They are improving that, as you saw with that one model I just showed you, the XPS2, and they're coming up to not quite the level of Aimpoint. They're not even close yet, but at least they're making some advances. So battery life, and it generally tends to be a heavier and in some cases bulkier sight, depending on which one you go with. In a lot of ways, I've always liked the 512. I think it's the 512. No, not the 512. It's the one that has a little tiny battery. It's the 511. It only has 200 hours of battery life, but that thing is munchkin size. It's very tiny, and it only weighs 8.8 ounces. Basically the same size and weight as that XPS2 I just showed you. So that's, in a nutshell, the EOTECH. Great sight system, not perfect, but neither is the Aimpoints, truth be told. The good points on the Aimpoint, I like the tactile switch. That's just me. Call me crazy. Everything's attached. You see that they have retention things. You're not going to lose anything. You can batten down the hatches with Aimpoint. It's more waterproof. Has at least 50,000 hours of battery life if you go with one of the later models. 80,000 hours if you go with a Comp M4. That's just astounding battery life. The quality levels are the same as EOTECH. I can't say they're any less. These things are built like tanks. The electronics won't fail you. They're just super high quality. Disadvantages would be lack of field of view. Although I tend to think when you're shooting with both eyes open, it's less of a factor because you just won't notice it, especially under stress. But, some guys will like that. They'll like the larger field of view of the EOTECH a little bit better. Also, it's a lighter weight system, generally speaking. Now, with the Comp M4, where it goes with the double AA battery, the integrated base, the weights are going to be about the same. So the weight issue becomes moot at that point. The cost issue, I'm going to call that a draw as well. They're both pretty much around the same cost. But with the new advancements of both sight makers, it's going to kind of narrow the gap. And thing I forgot to say downside on the EOTECH, which to me, Nutnfancy is huge, the lack of optical protection to batten down the hatches. I'm not worried about these things breaking. I'm just worried about a big old chunk of mud getting in there if I fall down, and I'm going to have to scrape that out and clean off the optics so I can shoot. And if my aim point was buttoned down when I went head first into the mud fest, all I do is pop my caps and I'm ready to rock and roll. So for me, still, even with the advancements, I do prefer Aimpoint, but it is a close race, and I wish I had money enough to have an EOTECH because I really love that side picture. I think I covered it all. Probably did. If it's something I missed, I'll put it in annotations. Thanks, guys. Nutnfancy signing off with a tabletop review as requested by many between the EOTECH and the Aimpoint aiming systems. Maybe I'll do an ACOG one later.